Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this presentation. Today we're going to be discussing and demonstrating some of the new and exciting features in Excel 2016. So stand by. Okay, so the first feature we want to talk about today is the new Tell Me feature. So you just type a keyword or phrase into the Tell Me What You Want to Do box, and it pops up with really helpful suggestions and even context that takes you straight to the functions you're trying to complete. It's really cool, it's really simple, it's an enhanced sort of a help. So here's what you do.
Okay, so first you'll notice that the Tell Me What You Want to Do option is located just up here right above the ribbon bar. So let's say, for example, I want to make a chart out of this data. I'll simply click in this box and type the word chart. Now it takes me straight to the functions I need to make a chart. From here I can even preview the chart. Or let's say I want to understand how to print something. Just click in the Tell Me What to Do, type the word print, and there are all my options. So as you can see, it's very simple, very easy, and actually kind of cool.
Okay, so Tell Me was a pretty cool feature for searching for how to do things inside of Excel 2016. But there's another really neat search feature in Excel 2016 called Smart Lookup. So you can fact check or explore terms inside of your document using Bing powered Smart Lookup. So basically, when you select a word or a phrase and you right click it and choose Smart Lookup, it's going to do more than just get you the definition or just get you the spelling. It's going to open up the Insight pane and do a smart Bing search and give you a lot of contextual information about that word or that phrase. It's really interesting, it's really powerful. Here's what you do.
Okay, so remember the old days where you could right click on a word and possibly get the definition or do a spell check or maybe even a synonym. That was all well and good, but with Smart Lookup, you get so much more. For example, if I right click on smartphone and choose Smart Lookup, it opens the Insight pane and it does a Bing Smart Lookup. And you'll notice that there's a lot of rich content in here. Information from Wikipedia, a Bing image search. I can even expand this as well. Very powerful. Now, spell checking and definitions, that's still in there as well. Notice it seems I've misspelled the word exacerbate here, but let's make sure. Right click, do a Smart Lookup. It takes me straight to the definition, and yeah, I can see that I have misspelled it right there. So I could fix that. Let's look at another one. If we go to, this is a town I'm going to be visiting here pretty soon here in North Carolina. So I just want to find out more about that town. I can do that without ever leaving Excel. I can get more information. Now, if this were a word, I would get information about it. I could also come up and click Define at the top. There's no definition for it because it's the name of a town. But again, Bing image search, tons of information without ever having to leave Excel. All right, so that is Smart Lookup.
Okay, what's next? In Excel 2016, we have 6 new chart types. I know what you're thinking, chart types. Who cares about a chart type? Well, charts are very important because you know that visualization is critical to effectively display your data and to have compelling storytelling around that data. So in Excel 2016, there are 6 new chart types to help you tell this story. So those chart types include tree map, sunburst, histogram, Pareto, box and whiskers, waterfall, and funnel. It's important to note, however, that funnel is only available if you are using the Office 365 version of Excel 2016 and you are connected with an Office 365 account. So these are the new chart types. Let's go over some of those. Here's what you do.
All right, let's talk about the 6 new exciting chart types that you'll find in Excel 2016. First, where do you find charts to begin with? Well, what you're going to want to do is highlight your data, and then you can either do what we talked about originally, which was click on the tell me what to do and type in chart, and you'll find all of the charts up here. And you can even get previews of them and things like that. What I like to do is hit insert and then do recommended charts, all charts. Then I can see them by name. Okay. All right, let's talk about this one. Let's talk about the waterfall chart. All right. So the waterfall chart provides a great method to visualize the impact of multiple data points, typically in a series of positive and negative values as a running total. So this is pretty common when analyzing financial data, kind of like what you would find in an income statement. But the waterfall chart is generally useful for visualizing data over time to see where you started versus where you are currently and how you got there. So you can sort of see what we did with this one. If you look at it, how we kind of color coded it. Uh, in particular, in this one, we made the rises in dark green and the falls in sort of an orange color. But you can tell it's very visual um, way to represent that data. Now you can change the way this looks, and I enjoy doing that. If you just click on it and come up here to design, and you have a variety of different looks. One of my favorites is this one. It's very visual. It kind of makes it pop out. But yeah, so that is your waterfall chart. So let's talk about the histogram chart now. All right, so a histogram is another variation of the bar chart, like the waterfall chart, but instead shows the frequency of data. It does this by showing data as a range of values, or what are called bins. Um, so let's look at this very generic example to illustrate the waterfall chart, and then we'll kind of dig into the more specifics of it. So let's consider that there are 20 top players in Major League Baseball, and this is their batting average. So our objective is to separate out the frequency of players within bins that span the range from lowest batting average to highest batting average. Now, if you'll notice, the lowest average of the top 20 players is 0.308, and the highest is 0.58. So it follows that the total range is 50 points. So this would fit perfectly into 5 bins of 10 points each. And doing so allows us to visualize the number of players within each 10-point range and see the distribution of the top 20 players across those ranges. And the way that we organize those by bin, if you just right click on the bar here and go to Format Data Point, and then we come over and select the horizontal category axis, and then just choose bin, the number of bins, and I just put in 5. Now, if we change that to 10, you can see how that affects it. Now we have 10 bins, and you can see how many are in. Basically the spread of numbers got smaller. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, now let's look at the next chart. It's called a Pareto chart. So the Pareto chart's another variation of the bar chart that mixes in a line chart. The bars of the chart represent data values in descending order, while the line chart represents the progression of the cumulative percentage of the total. So, for example, let's say we want to look at the annual sales across different products or product categories for a music store chain. The Pareto chart will show us the dollar amounts in descending order and by category, while superimposing a line chart that traces the cumulative percent of total sales from one category to the next, as you see in this example. So you see we have the dollar amounts in descending order. Boom, boom, boom. But then we have the superimposed on that is the cumulative percent of total sales from one category to the next. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, let's talk about the next chart type, which has the most fun name. It's called box and whiskers. So the box and whiskers chart is used in statistics to show the distribution of data into quartiles. The chart is the chart also highlights the mean and any outliers. So the first quartile is indicated by the horizontal line on the lower whisker up to the bottom line of the box. The second quartile is from the lower line of the box to the mean, while the third quartile runs from the mean to the top of the box. And finally, the last quartile begins with the top of the box up to the length of the upper whisker. And any outliers are plotted as points above or below the length of either of the whiskers. So here's what we use in our little test data here to illustrate this. We basically have uh, multiple data sets with uh, just so we can use single or multiple data series with box and whisker charts. So to illustrate, we'll look at individual sales data by purchase price for 3 different musical instrument product categories. That will be electric guitars, keyboards, and pro audio. And our data table looks something like this right here, as you can see. Boom. And you see by plotting out this in a box and whiskers, you can note the variation in price. You can see that it's quite wide for keyboards, and yet it's fairly narrow for electric guitars. So like previous charts, this is another very powerful chart type for visualizing data that would otherwise be rather difficult by simply looking at the table or data itself. This is especially true when analyzing a very large data set. All right, and that is box and whiskers. Okay, now let's have a look at the tree map. So the tree map chart is one that visually represents data in a hierarchical fashion, allowing for the recognition of patterns. So the tree map chart represents data with rectangles sized by a value of quantity, and it can also make use of different colors to represent different categories. So tree map charts are great for visualizing hierarchical data within categories as compared to other categories. So for example, let's consider a small grocery store that wants to visualize sales data across different grocery categories: fruits, vegetables, nuts, dairy, and meats. So for each of these categories, it has a food product classified to them that we have quarterly sales data for. As you can see here, fruits, vegetables, nuts, dairy, and meats, and we have products for each of those categories, and we have quarterly sales for each of those products. Notice that even though our data table is organized and sorted by product category, the fact that it isn't sorted by sales amount really doesn't give us any sense of which products have the best or worst sales volume or what kind of patterns are being established, at least not at a glance. But if you look at the tree map chart, you can see that story kind of unfold more easily. So as before, we simply highlighted our data table, we selected tree map from the all charts, and we inserted it. And as you can see from here, you can see that dairy and meat are your biggest sellers, and then inside of dairy and meat, which are the bigger sellers, just kind of visually and very simply. And that is tree map. All right, let's take a look at this next chart. It's called the Sunburst Chart. So this is the final new chart available in Excel 2016 that we're going to take a look at. This is yet another chart that provides a hierarchical visualization of our data. The Sunburst map represents data in the form of concentric circles. When visualizing data, this is Sunburst. Sunburst, take 2. So the final new chart available in Excel 2016 that we're going to take a look at is the Sunburst Chart. This is yet another chart that provides hierarchical visualization of our data. The Sunburst map represents data in the form of concentric circles. When visualizing data that is organized into multiple levels of categories, the Sunburst chart shows us how outer rings relate to inner rings. So let's look at this. Let's look at a home run totals with the American League where we have some data broken down to the player level with just a few teams. We got the Central, East, and West. All right, baseball's going on now, so Sunburst take 3, action. The final new category available in Excel 2016 that we're going to, Sunburst take 4. So the final new chart category available in Excel 2016 that we're going to take a look at is the Sunburst chart. This is yet another chart that provides hierarchical visualization of our data. The Sunburst map represents data in the form of concentric circles. So when visualizing data that is organized into multiple levels of categories, the Sunburst chart shows how outer rings relate to inner rings. Let's look at home run totals within the American League, where we have some data broken down to the player level with a few teams. I mean, it is baseball season after all, right? As you can see here, we've got the Central, East, and West Division. We've got a few teams in here. We've got a few players in here. And we've got their home runs listed in here. So notice that our table drills down to a few category levels. Man, I should have just done that. Sunburst chart, take 6, action. The final new chart available in 2016 that we're going to take a look at is the Sunburst chart. This is yet another chart that provides a hierarchical visualization of our data. The Sunburst map represents data in the form of concentric circles. When visualizing data that is organized into multiple levels of categories, the Sunburst chart shows how outer rings relate to inner rings. So let's look at home run totals within the American League, where we have some data broken down to the player level with a few teams. Notice that our table drills down to a few category levels, division to team player. So for those players that have their home run stats parsed out of the totals, the Sunburst chart will give us a final outer circle that identifies them with their team and the team within the division. So let's take a look at that. Notice that the size and relationship of the player boxes to their team box. So since each player only contributes a portion of the team total home runs, the Sunburst chart can accurately represent this. And now for a little bonus, we have a 7th chart. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this chart, the funnel chart, is only available to users who are using the Office 365 version of Excel 2016 and have that connected to their Office 365 account. If you have that, then you have access to this new funnel chart. So funnel charts show values across multiple stages in a process. For example, you could use a funnel chart to show the number of sales prospects at each stage in a sales pipeline. Typically, the values decrease gradually, allowing the bars to resemble a funnel, hence the name funnel chart. That's it for the charts. Thanks.
Okay, next we're going to talk about a new feature called OneClick Forecasting. The new forecasting sheet button in Excel 2016 lets you use historical time-based data to create a forecast visualization that predicts things like future sales, inventory requirements, or consumer trends. It can be very handy. Here's what you do.
You know, it's difficult to make predictions, especially about the future, which I think is what a prediction is. Anyway, it just got a whole lot easier in Excel 2016 with one-click forecasting. You know, we often use Excel to analyze time-based series data like sales or server utilization or inventory data so that we can find reoccurring seasonality patterns and trends. Well, in Excel 2016, new forecasting sheet functions and one-click forecasting helps you to explain the data and understand future trends. In this example, we have a list of the number of airline passengers starting that flew on airlines starting in January 2009 and going through August 2013, excluding, of course, any passengers who were dragged off kicking and screaming. Okay, too soon? Sorry. So, what we want to do with this data is try and predict how many people are going to be flying in the coming years after August 2013. So, the way that we can do that in Excel 2016 is simply go to Data at the top here on the ribbon, go to the Data tab, click on the Forecast sheet, and already you can see that Excel is hard at work predicting, forecasting for us. And then just hit Create. Bam. Now, if we look at our data, you'll see that we have our original data, but now we also have forecasted data all the way through August 2015 for the next 2 years. Very simple. It even includes the chart so that you can easily visualize what that prediction looks like. And that's it. One-click forecasting. Now, there's a lot that goes into the back of this. There's some formulas, and you can get even more in depth with this. And I encourage you to look more into that. But as you can see, Excel 2016 has really made predicting the future a lot easier.
Our next feature is called 3D Maps. With 3D Maps, you can get access to the popular 3D geospatial visualization tools that allow you to discover patterns in your data as it relates to location, time, and geospatial context. The popular 3D geospatial visualization tool, previously named Power Map, has been renamed to 3D Maps and is now available to all Excel 2016 users. Here's what you do.
Microsoft 3D Maps for Excel is a three-dimensional data visualization tool that lets you look at information in new ways. 3D Maps lets you discover insights you might not see in traditional two-dimensional tables and charts. You know, with 3D Maps, you can plot geographic and temporal data on a 3D globe or a custom map and show it over time, and even create virtual tours that you can share with other people. You'll want to use 3D Maps to map data. That is to plot more than 1 million rows of data visually on Bing Maps in 3D format from an Excel table or data model in Excel. Also to discover insights, gain new understanding by viewing your data in geographic space and seeing timestamp data change over time. And also to share your stories. You can capture screenshots and build cinematic guided video tours that you can share broadly, engaging audiences like never before. Or you can export the tours to video and share them that way as well. You'll find the 3D map button in the Tours section under the Insert tab. So let's go ahead and look at at an example of a 3D map guided tour. In this example, we have power stations all over the country, and we can tell a compelling story about our power usage over time. So to create this 3D map, simply hit Insert, go to 3D Maps, and we're going to choose, we could do a new tour, but we've already got one that's prepared for you for power stations. This is an example of a tour and exactly how this would play out. So using the data that we had in that spreadsheet, we can show you where our energy comes from, how our energy uses have changed over time, and where our energy usage is headed. Now, if you have a better video card than I have, this actually goes much more smoothly. But here we can see capacity by energy source. If you wanted to, you can pause this and you can zoom in. I can zoom into to my city right here, Mecklenburg County, and I can see that my capacity, and I can see that my energy description is, well, it's radioactive. It's all good. We can continue to play this. We can even skip ahead. You can see how different regions of our country use different energy sources. It's easy to see how using 3D maps can be visually powerful for presenting your data, especially data over time.
Next is the new Get and Transform query. Excel 2016 now comes with built-in functionality that brings ease and speed to getting and transforming your data, allowing you to find and bring all data you need into one place from multiple sources. So if you're familiar with Power Query, which was an add-in, a separate add-in for Excel 2013 and 2010, that has now been integrated into this new Get and Transform query in Excel 2016. Here's what you do.
With the Get and Transform query in Excel 2016, you can search for data sources, make connections, and then shape the data. For example, remove columns, change a data type, or merge tables in ways that meet your needs. Once you've shaped your data, you can share your findings or use your query to create reports. Whenever you connect to data, transform it, or combine it with other data sources, a feature of Get and Transform called Query Editor records each step and lets you modify each step in any way you need. Query Editor also lets you undo, redo, change the order, or modify any step. Also, you can shape your view of the connected data just the way you want it. Now, I don't have a database to connect to or any data that I can connect to for this demo, but I want to show you where you would go to start that query. It's pretty simple. Just go up here to the Data tab, click New Query, choose your data source. There is a wide variety of data sources you can choose from.
Our next feature is called Ink Equations, and it's really cool. If you have a touchscreen device, you can use your finger or a touch-sensitive stylus to simply write out mathematical equations, and Excel will convert those to text. If you don't have a touchscreen, you can just use your mouse in the same manner to write out equations. You can also erase, select, and correct what you've written as you go. Here's what you do. Okay, so let's talk about ink equations in Excel 2016. First, to access them, you just go to Insert, then at the very end you'll see where it says Equations. You can hit the drop down here and you can choose Ink Equations, or you can just click on the Equations button and click on Ink Equations. That's going to open up the Math and Input control. Let's expand that out a little bit so we can have a little more room to work. You've got the preview area at the top, the area that you write in the middle. At the bottom you have 4 controls: write, erase, select and correct, and then clear. I've really only ever used write and erase. So let's write in an equation real quick. Let's do the correlation coefficient equation. R equals operator Sometimes it has a hard time with my handwriting. It's a fraction. So a fraction. It's like if I try to write it even more sloppily, it gets it correctly. That's where the preview area comes in really handy. That's square. All right. It looks correct. And now you just hit insert. And let's expand that a little bit so it's a little bigger. And there you go. That's basically how you use the ink equation. As you can see, it's not perfect. Still, though, I think it did a fairly decent job. And finally, we have a new feature for sharing and collaboration. You know, co-authoring lets you work smarter and faster, allowing you to keep your work in one place in the cloud, while providing easy access and editing capabilities for your team and viewing capabilities for people outside of your organization.
Here's what you do. Sharing and collaboration in Excel 2016 is really simple. In fact, it's really simple in all of the Office 2016 products. So in order to share in Excel 2016, simply click on the Share button here at the top, and then invite the people that you want to share with. I will choose, let's see, here we go. And from here, you can also determine exactly what sort of editing options they have, whether they can edit the document or they can only view the document, and then you share it. Once it's shared, that person is going to get an email letting them know that a document has been shared with them, and then giving them a link to that shared document. Here's what that looks like. This is a virtual machine where that user is set up. Here's the email. There's a document that someone has shared with you, and then from right here we can click to open and go straight to that document. Now, a couple of things to note. When you share a workbook, multiple users can't work in the same file at the same time. Instead, you merge changes from one or more copies of that workbook back into the one that you shared. And you do that with the Compare and Merge Workbooks button. However, that button is right here, by the way, right there. But in order to get that button, you have to add it. You do that just by simply clicking right-clicking on your ribbon, go to Customize Quick Access Toolbar, and you can find it in here. Right now it's set to Popular. If you set it to All Commands, you can scroll down to the C's, and you see I've already put it in here, but you'll find it down here, the Compare and Merge, and you just find it, click Add, say OK, and then it'll be available up here. Very easy, very simple. So these changes bring together two key aspects of collaboration: who has access to a given document and who is currently working with you on the document. So now you can view both pieces of information in one place from the Share dialog box.